meeting to order. Roll call, I guess, is first.
Mr. Newman?
Here.
Ms. Powell?
Here.
Mr. Dennis?
Here.
Ms. Tuggle?
Here.
Ms. Nazak?
Here.
Dino P. Paspalakis? Dino M. Paspalakis? Mr. Mayara?
Okay. The next order of business is approval of the minutes.
I just have one correction. This is real. I actually found it. On page 6, where under board comments, it says that I spoke on the city's radio show about horticulture. It's actually a slightly different word. It's permaculture, P-E-R-M-A.
Okay.
It's more broad. If it was horticulture, I would have asked Jamie to speak.
Okay. We'll fix it.
Is that the only correction? Okay, I guess we need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve. Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0. Right? Okay. The next item is the wall graphics and wall signs, 511 Main Street.
Okay. What you have before you, you've been seeing a number of these now, wall graphics, which is kind of exciting. We're seeing some excitement out there, some color. And this is different than the others. We have an opportunity because of a change in location for the Main Street Barber Shop to consider a building that you all know is a laundromat that is now going to get a facelift. It's going to be repainted, and it is going to be very clear that it's a barber shop because there are going to be graphics that are going to be placed on the building all the way around. And there's two things that go with this request. It's not just a request for the wall graphics, but we also asked the board, and I think we did this one time before over on South Atlantic, where there is a painted sign, and where we have to separate what is really a wall sign permit, that you're allowed to do this anywhere in the city and do the actual sign and paint it on a wall, but in redevelopment areas you can't. It doesn't meet the redevelopment standard for a wall sign. But the board is authorized to be able to allow that to happen. So there's really two requests that are involved tonight with this building and the painting that would occur here. So I'm going to kind of run through very quickly this. Charles, do you have the monitor set up where I can make it work? Okay, very good. This is the location at Oleander and Main Street, and as you can see, the building sits pretty much on a block by itself, kind of very visible to anyone that's driving up and down Main Street. And the property owner has wanted to make some changes and try to see if getting out of the laundromat business and having something else here would be a change. And we're kind of excited about this one and bringing the barber shop down and having some more activity down on that end of the street. This is another picture of the building, and then the existing, and then that would be the look of it after it was painted with your approval. And you can see the sign at the top at the front of the building. There's a similar one at the back of the building. We take another angle here, the perspective. Oops. Okay, back up there. Okay. So from the back, you can see there's another sign on top. So there's two ways to let you know the Main Street Barber Shop is there, but there's certainly other ways by using the graphics on the columns. Really, this is a use of the architecture and the shapes that are there, and making that symbol looks like a barber pole. And all of the things that go with the barber shop, sort of a view, almost like a clip art, but it's actually a little more than that, I think. And then we have provided to you the requirements that go with it. And if it meets those requirements, then we'd ask the board to comment on those, and if they have any concerns about it. We cannot get into the content of any of what would be the graphics that might bring us into a First Amendment concern. Ben is here and can answer questions you might have about that. The main thing is to see that something that's going to enhance the building is in keeping with the scale, size, and the compatibility of some of the surrounding areas as well as the building itself. That's all I have for you. So with that, if you're okay, I'd like to let you know the applicant is here, Mr. Ken Peters, and he can provide additional information for you.
Hi everybody, I'm really glad to be here. I've been looking forward to this. I've been looking forward to that.
Sorry, sir, could you state your name and address?
My name is Ken Peters, and I'm currently at 744 Main Street, the Main Street Barbershop, soon to be 511 Main Street.
Thank you.
My hands have been tied for 26 years. That's how long I've been in the barbershop there at 744. Watching things go on, wishing that it was mine, or wishing that I could do this, wishing that I could do that. And my hands have been tied. Mike Forrest was the owner of that property down there. Nice guy, but my hands were tied. So I finally had the opportunity to do something. Now the main reason I'm moving down there is there's 5 parking spots, possibly 6. I might be able to fit 6 parking spots in there. Parking has been a huge problem on Main Street. I'm sure everybody is in agreement on that. It's a huge problem. I had petitioned, not officially, but I had petitioned Mayor Henry about the lot that's right behind 744. It's Joe's Crab Shack employees only. That lot sits empty all the time. They're using the other lot that's been provided to them. They're not using the one behind the barbershop. Anytime during the morning, afternoon, evening, late at night, even during special events when Joe's Crab Shack has all hands on deck, that parking lot never fills up. I tried to get him to talk to Joe's Crab Shack. The city attorney said that he didn't even want to open a can of worms. He didn't even want to speak to Joe's Crab Shack about it. And that was devastating to me. That's what Main Street needs, is more parking. We need surface lots, maybe another parking garage. If Main Street is going to develop and grow with the decline of Bike Week, then we need parking. And Bike Week is declining. Budweiser sales is off over 60% in 10 years. 60%. And that's Volusia County, not Main Street. So anyway, I'm moving into the 511 building. I'm excited to go down there. I get to pretty much do what I want with the inside of the building, with the outside of the building. I do plan on putting some tables and chairs out there. I've got a little patio area out front. There's a 14-foot easement between the building and the sidewalk. I'd like to put some little tables out there during the day, move them in at night, because we do still have a homeless problem. Sometime in the future, I'll be petitioning you folks again about putting a little white picket fence up in front, just like Humphrey's Jewelers has, and make it a nice little park area. When he brings the picture back up, you'll see in my artist's depiction of what it's going to look like, you see these nice grassy areas, just little spots of grass. Right now it's all weedy, it's gnarly looking, it's nasty. I'm going to look into Home Depot and see if they've got some AstroTurf that I can put down. Put down some heavy-duty weed kill that'll kill all the existing crap that's there, and put AstroTurf down. I don't know how well that's going to go over with the homeless people. It may be destroyed within a week or 2 weeks. We'll see. But I do want to put the barber poles on the building. And I understand that the city is after the mural scene. And I read over carefully what the rules were basically. And I think that I kind of fit into that rule. You know, they are graphics. It's not a written comment. It's just simply depicting what I am. And I think it's cool as heck looking. I've showed it to all my customers, and 100% of my customers are like, wow! So we're all excited. So if you have any questions, shoot them at me.
My question would be more for staff, and regarding this painted signage. The only exception on that signage is that it's painted on.
That is correct. In other words, it meets
Otherwise, it's within
size
the parameters of size and.
just like any wall sign.
Okay.
The reason I wanted to do a painted sign instead of having one manufactured, it keeps it old school looking. And that's what I'm after. I like that old school look. That's why the barber poles.
I love the look of this, and I love taking this photograph of the building.
And I like what Mr. Berger had to say also, the use of the existing architecture. Yeah, I know. The use of the existing architecture is exactly what I was trying to do. Make barber poles out of what was there.
Amy?
So the signage part of it is what's on the front and the rear,
Yes. The rear is what's facing the Ocean Center, so
Right.
people at the Ocean Center can see
which
it.
is great. And I think that fits exactly. The barber poles, I mean, I like the idea of allowing, you know, especially the front, the big barber poles to look like barber poles. But my concern with this is that if, you know, it's not written signage now. But if we have a t-shirt shop, could they paint t-shirt shapes on the side? I mean, it's a genuine concern, and I don't mean to shoot anything down. We've talked, you know how I feel about this. But if we are going to encourage art and murals, and we have people that are willing to get behind this and fund artists and work, you know, a little more proactively with getting art on the sides of buildings. If you like an old school look, I think we can help you to get that, and we can deliver that in a way that you're going to love. This is it's very graphic, but I think I actually think this is signage. I think this says barbershop on the side, and is, you know, what's the square footage that we allow for something like that is my question. I don't know if any of my other board members see the same thing that I'm seeing.
Sounds like a staff question.
I'll just let you know that there's not a size requirement or limitation for
Oh,
wall
okay.
graphic
Oh.
number one.
But signage,
For some, if it were a sign,
Right.
and again, there's nothing here to say that it's a sign. It doesn't fall under any definition that meets the sign requirement. So that's why we treat it as a graphic or an architectural embellishment.
When you would first approach me about murals, I'm like, cool. And those were my ideas of
Right.
my murals. I'm having an airbrush that's going to do the work for me. To me, that's a mural. I didn't start using the word graphics until I seen it in the paperwork. And I go, okay, I guess they're referring to this as graphics. I was considering it a nice mural. And what better mural to put on a barbershop than barbershop stuff?
well, if there's nothing in our,
Well, the land development code that you would apply here in section 610, is it J, Reed? Section 610, J, 13D2 provides for this board as the reviewing agency to look at scale, design, intensity, and character, and provides that those have to be consistent with the design of the building and compatible with the building and surrounding structures. So, while that's not as clear as saying the scale will be no more than 50% of the painted surface, it is up to this board to determine whether the scale is appropriate or not. that's what you review it for, among other things.
Okay.
Jenny?
It's really neat.
Thank you.
Mark?
Do I have this on? Okay. Yeah, I guess I see it differently because I did not agree with some of the graphics for the things that we've already approved. I thought they had nothing to do with anything about the beach or anything. I'm actually very happy that these graphics are identifiable with something that we want to promote on Main Street. So I have a different way of viewing that, and for me, it is a wall decoration and it's specific to that building, but it's not a written sign. And I was thrilled to see these. I think it's really exciting. My question was on the two pictures you provided with the parking. Is there actually any parking space that comes off of Oleander?
Yes.
There's 4 or 5 groups.
There's 6 there now, but they're angular, and it's angular against the one way. It's angled coming from the Ocean Center parking lot, which is gated all the time. So I guess Peony said that he was going to have it re-blacktop. You know how you surface a shiny black? And then I was going to repaint it, but I need to measure out. Hopefully I can get a 6 and a handicap spot in there. So 5 plus a handicap. If not, then it's going to be 4 and a handicap.
That would be a big thing for you because of what you've dealt with on Main Street. Yeah. And then on the other side, that's that big parking lot.
That's the big empty lot that does not belong to me.
But would people have access to that? I mean, you share it?
Yeah, Neptune's people park there, the Tattoo Parlor people park there, Humphrey's Jewelers people park there. I understand that the people that bought 777, I know Teresa owns it, but the people that bought the business at 777, they also bought from those people that empty lot.
Okay.
They're Pakistani, I don't know what their names are. Nice people.
Mm-hmm. Just curious, how many spaces do you usually need or use?
About 35. No. 5, 6 should be ample.
You've done well.
They've been parking across the street at 777, but almost every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, those go up for sale. They start charging to park over there, so there goes the parking there. So they go in, park in Joe's Crab Shack, and they get a ticket.
I really need more sharing around here. It's ridiculous. Everybody needs that.
Oh, I don't
We
blame
need
you.
a car sharing app if we don't want our city to get eaten by the cancer of parking.
We need
It
parking.
already is.
Can't be stressed enough.
Share.
Yeah, I'm going to finish.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, Marshall.
Yes, sir.
So my other question is, how would that parking be affected for you during Bike Week? Like right now, during Bike Week, you're totally disrupted. I know you get a ton of business, walk-in business, but nobody can park in front of
My
you.
bike week might die. Peeny's going to put tents up like he usually does from the front of the building out to the sidewalk, all the way east to the sidewalk, and then down where the parking spaces are. He would leave 2 spaces open so my employee and I can park in there. But that doesn't really bother me so
So
much because
basically
during bike week I don't have parking anyway.
Yeah, you're back to where you are anyway.
So
Okay.
I might have to come before this board again before Biketoberfest. I want to buy some of those flags. They're about this wide and they go up in the air. Everybody's using them now. I can buy some on Amazon. It has barber poles and it says barbershop. I might need to put some of those on top of the roof. I'll make sure that they're secured, and then 2 more outside by the tent. Because my barbershop will virtually be hidden by tents, except from the west side, should this board approve my design. If they're walking west to east, they'll see the whole side of that one side of the building. If they're walking east to west, they'll walk by and not even know the barbershop exists. So it could effectively kill my bike week business, and the barbershop might just close up for 2 weeks during bike week.
And
I'm more
what-
concerned with the well-being of the barbershop on the year-round.
Yeah.
What's best for my year-round customers. They're the ones that make my world go round.
And then one other comment on the signage. I mean, we have signage here across the street at Victory Tattoo. It's the same kind of thing, right?
Right.
So it's not like we're doing something that hasn't already been done.
Yeah, the last one was recognized as painting. It was included in the plan
Right.
development.
So I just wanted to make that observation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, sir.
I'll read for this barbershop, what does zoning require for parking places? How many?
0.
None?
No parking is required in that zoning district along Main Street.
Okay. I kind of looked at the address and I didn't see where a barber license, City of Daytona Beach, the barber license was being applied for. Is it?
How much time do I have? I'm going to.
Okay.
I've got a license now. City, county, state.
Okay, so what you're doing is you're moving from...
I'm moving from 744 to 511.
Okay.
Let me just say, with any occupancy of a building or a change of occupancy, and you apply for a license, that's the time when if there's some issues with the site, the parking or anything else, that can be reviewed at the same time.
So I should do that at any time now.
I think the sooner the better. I would do it.
And where do I go?
Right down stairs in the permits and license,
Okay.
and they'll help you.
Sure.
I think it's terrific. I mean, you can tell it's a barber shop, and even during bike week, I got a feeling you can tell it's a barber shop, and I hope that you don't get crowded out, and I hope that we have a 52-week business.
53.
Okay, well, and 52 and some change. Anyway, I guess with that we go to public comments, but you're one of the speakers, so I guess you've already spoken.
So I can have a seat?
Yep, you can have your seat back.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
And I'm excited about what's happening on Main Street and what's going to continue to happen. I knew it was just a matter of time before this was going to happen. With the decline of Bike Week, you're going to start seeing more and more year-round people coming in. And I'm not anti-Bike Week at all, by the way. I'm not anti-Bike Week. I'm pro-Bike Week. I make money during Bike Week. I am a realist. Chris and Kevin Bowler come in for their haircuts. I know what the percentage of Budweiser sales is. And it's not because the crowd is getting older and they're not drinking as much. I know what the sidewalk used to look like just a short 10 years ago. The crowd is thinning out. They're dying off. They're going into the nursing homes and they're being replaced by these crotch rocket they're being replaced by these crotch rocket kids, and it's nothing against them. More power to them if you can get them to come down here and spend some money. But they don't have the money that the baby boomers have. The vendors are making less money, so they're not opening up as many locations. A lot of them quit coming. Right next door to me, two-wheelers out of Denver, Colorado, sold the place and bye-bye. 30-some years, they were there longer than I was, and they finally gave up the ghost because they're not making the money. These are vendors that travel from out of state, and they're not making the money to make it worth their while to travel from out of state. You're going to start seeing more and more for rent signs on Main Street during an event. The rents are coming down to a point where a local person can afford to rent it out and go in. And I knew that this was going to happen. I am excited. I'm sorry to see Bike Week go. But I'm also, I think, more excited to see Main Street turn into a downtown to land. Flagler Avenue, St. George Street, up in St. Augustine. There's no reason why Main Street hasn't been that except for Bike Week. And one thing that really made me angry years ago was when they redid the streetscape. Look at some of the old photographs of the parking that was on Main Street. And the only reason that they did this, and remember, there was no Biketoberfest at this time. When they redid the streetscape on Main Street, they wiped out all of the parking spots. They did it for the bikers.
We have Sandy Murphy.
Hello, Sandy Murphy, 136 Park Avenue. First of all, I'd like to say that as a proponent of Main Street, I really appreciate Mr. Peters because he's had a business there for a long time. It's always open, it's always kept attractively, and it's what we hope to see more of. And to hear his plans of not only taking a former eyesore and making it into something that is equivalent to what he's had, but taking the next step and making it charming out front and taking those extra steps to make it even more attractive. I think that is a terrific thing for Main Street, and I really appreciate it. My hesitation about this particular proposal is that it feels like such a giant advertisement, which doesn't feel like, I guess, the proportionality. of it is what I question. Also, as people look at that, it will serve the business purpose of bringing people down to the barber shop, but it won't serve the community purpose of drawing non-barbershop customers further into the Main Street area and bringing people down that streetscape that we desperately need. So I have very mixed feelings about this. We have a business person here who really deserves our support. I just wish I could see something that was a little bit more of a mural, of the kind like you might see in DeLand or something that shows what goes on in the barbershop rather than just showing a bunch of poles. But he's certainly a merchant who deserves our support. Thank you.
I guess we have one more speaker, Krista Goodrich.
Krista Goodrich, 816 Main Street. I would say you should definitely support this as another merchant on Main Street. Any improvement from any year-round vendor that we have should be wholeheartedly supported. And if it's graphic looking or barbershop looking, I don't care. He's there, he's working every single day, and there's like 10 of us maybe that are doing that. We'll happily drive our bike by and point out that that's the barbershop, and if they want to get their hair cut when they're in town, please stop there. So I would wholeheartedly say please approve what he wants to do.
Okay. With that, I guess we open it up. Do we do a motion first?
That's the general procedure.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, you ask for a motion, have it seconded, and then you would discuss.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve.
A second?
I'll second.
And then you could ask for discussion.
Okay, now let's do discussion.
I just have one thing I'd like to say. As a member of the planning board, we have, over the past couple of years, approved a tasty freeze that the whole building looks like a giant bucket of ice cream. We've approved a Kentucky Fried Chicken. The building looks like a box of chicken. So these graphics that allude to the business inside, I think, are not out of keeping at all with what's allowed throughout the city, with things that have been approved. And I just wanted to bring that up, that this is not considered signage. They're wall graphics, and while they allude to the business inside, that's not out of keeping with other projects that have been approved.
Amy?
So, having discussed, I totally and wholeheartedly agree with giving Ken all the possible support we can. And the number of times that we've talked about that laundry building, I was so excited to hear that you were going to move there. And I don't want my earlier comments to come across as negative and not wanting you to have what you want. I am happy to offer you, though, as this is probably going to be approved tonight, that you might consider the side of your building as one of our future really incredible art projects that will be at no cost to you. And if you're willing to talk about that later on, that is the kind of thing that we're looking for. The big blank walls on Main Street that will make it sing like downtown DeLand does, as you mentioned. So that's my only comment.
Jenny?
And I would say mural-wise, I got a flash in my mind of something getting a haircut, like I don't know, an alligator. Well, they don't really have hair, but some kind of a mural of someone getting a shave or a haircut could be DeLandish and neat. But I am super supportive of your plans in general. The only side note I would say, when you're going to do the landscaping and get rid of the weeds you don't want, I would put in my wish that you'd use ocean water to kill the weeds rather than use an herbicide. And I'll be happy to help you with it for free as Daytona Permaculture Guild.
Cool. I didn't know that would work.
Marcia?
Yeah, I'm really excited about this, and I guess to kind of go along with what Amy's saying. The thing is, with the art that we're trying to promote and the kinds of things we're trying to hopefully see progress, then those can be changed at any time. So he can put these graphics up now and have them for a while, and then if there's a better offer or something different comes along, I think that the door's probably open to do that. But so I think we kind of it's a fluid situation we're in right now with developing art, and I'm excited to see that we're headed in that direction. I love what you're doing here, but you could change your mind down the road and someone wants something different too. And I think it's great that we're open. We can be open to that as we move forward. And other than that, I just wish more people would get on board with this, with art on Main Street.
Until you see the inside.
Okay, and I agree with everything that's said. I'm not going to rehash it. I think we're all excited. I think a bright, shiny coat of paint on that building will do a lot of good. And with that, I guess we'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you,
Thank you
Mr.
guys so
Peters.
much. And I am open to the murals. Wide open. I'm the kind of guy that'll look down the street at a nice mural and say, why couldn't I have something like that?
Well, you may just get your wish.
Thank you.
What's next?
Redevelopment projects.
Redevelopment projects.
Okay. Doesn't mean that it's happening. All right. I think not last time, was it? Back in March, maybe we were talking about the E-zone, or was it this last month? I can't even keep track of it, but we had talked about E-zone master plan and an element about fees and for parking, right? And that was a concern, and Mr. Dennis, I know you had raised it as well, because we had Chairman Paspalakis, who came to commission meeting, the last meeting, and he had to make his presentation at the end because of the way that it's scheduled. And of course, you're not in front of the TV. You have audio, and you have people, if they're here, to listen, but it's at the very end of the meeting, which is a fairly long meeting, as I recall. I think the question is about getting a redo on that, and so now the next opportunity is to have a conversation with, I brought to the attention of the city manager some of that communication that I was receiving about wanting to make sure that there was a different way to communicate, to air this board's concerns about the parking fee issue, so that something can be addressed there. And then I did want to go back over because we didn't really have a discussion in any detail about the actual parking fees. And for those of you who have actually gotten in there and read that E-zone master plan, it does get into the fee idea and the shared parking, which we were talking about earlier. That's a key part of parking management over on Main Street and in that area is to look at ways to do something with assessing parking fees. And in there, I had, if you could show the slide again, please. Thank you. Appreciate it, Charles. This is actually the wording that's in the E-zone master plan for parking fees that deals with requirements for new development, and developers and tenants in the E-zone should be provided the appropriate number of spaces for their use within the nearest garage. We don't have a garage yet. But one of the ways that you can help to encourage the development of garage, besides waiting for the next large project to come along, is to begin by creating an opportunity for assessment for new development, so that the new development actually has some participation in there, and it isn't left up to negotiation for a planned development that you're working on, whatever it might be, that those developments would actually know up front there would be something you would be paying into and contributing to for the betterment of the whole E-zone, and that means Main Street, essentially, with those parking garages. So there'd be some pooled funding. And Dino isn't here tonight, but I can certainly tell you that he had sent, as a part of his communication, a plan on the downtown parking in lieu of fee final report, but it was done by AECOM, who coincidentally was also the author of the E-zone master plan. And this is what they did over in the city of Santa Monica. If you've ever been there, it's a very urban setting in that tourist area, and so they have gone through steps to implement some of that. So there's a number of cities that have had some precedent in using a fee structure to be assessed with new development in the area. It's not the only way to raise revenue. There's certainly the tourist tax, development tax that is used for the Ocean Center. That could also apply if that was considered in the future for some of the development that might occur, could occur. Anyway, it was an opportunity for this board to get something back to the commission, but really the next step is to allow the city manager to maybe have an opportunity to consider what he wants to do with this, maybe as a discussion item or agenda item of some kind. So that's where it stands right now. I don't have an answer for you, anything definitive, other than I wanted to bring it to your attention where the status is.
Discussion? Amy?
Yeah, I do have a question. There are two, there's probably more, but there's two that I can think of that on A1A, temporary parking lots, one just north of Main Street on the right, on the east side there, and then another right at the Kemp Street beach access. You familiar with that one?
Yes.
You know what I'm talking
Yes.
about? When those permits are, the owner of that property has a permit to run a parking lot, I'm assuming. What are the fees that are paid to allow that business to take place on that site? I'm just curious. Is it a $250 business permit, or is it assessed on size, or how much money they take in?
Well, that's a good question. I don't think it's much. I think most businesses are paying a very minimal amount.
Right.
And so I can't tell you distinguish what that fee is for a parking lot as opposed to a business, but I'm going to guess it's something like $30 a year.
Right. Well, there's something that really needs to change, because there's those, and then there's pop-up lots that are not permitted. They're all around, and I know we don't really work hard to enforce them because we're so lacking on parking that nobody wants to shut them down. We want those to be available. But my feeling is that if somebody has a vacant property that is allowed to charge $10 a car during large events without a permit, there should be some recompense to the city. Either give them a permit and require something back that could be put towards our future parking, alleviation of our parking problem, or I don't want them shut down because we have to have that parking, but they're all over the place, and you and I both know pretty much where they are. But we need to get a handle on that. A parking authority and some oversight to manage these things, because if a vacant lot can be used for parking inevitably, I mean, I have a vacant lot next to me. It's a residential lot. There's plenty of people doing parking on residential lots close to Main Street, but I wouldn't be allowed to do that and charge. So, and we buckle down on that a little bit and get some money generated from those lots, just a consideration.
Yeah, and when I see the parking lots that sit empty, I get frustrated. Every city where I've ever lived, free parking has not been a right, and parking spaces and lots are in use 24/7 all the time. I think that if a parking lot's ever empty, that's a failure. I mean, we've got to find more creative ways to share these things, and yeah, it's frustrating. And I think when a new business opens, maybe we really need to look at how many parking spaces we have, and maybe the certain spots on Main Street need to be paid for, and then it's cheaper to park in the parking garage, or something, like some kind of tiered fee system. Like when you're talking about parking assessment, first I was thinking, oh good, let the drivers pay for parking. But you're also talking about, you know, developers of new businesses having to be assessed as well. So I don't know. It feels like we have a lot of empty parking lots. How can we share? Can we share with the county? Can the city and the county not share?
You know, I know the county and the city have had discussions that particularly related to that 500 block and 600 block, and looking at ways that we can have a more formal understanding and agreement, because you know sometimes it changes and you know who's managing the Ocean Center at a given time, or whether or not you can use certain lots. So I think we're better coordinated than we were in the past, but the formality of some kind of an agreement has yet to be reached. Keep in mind that there's also, and you might ask, why do we charge and have to charge everyone in our lots a certain amount? It's tied into this agreement that we had that goes way back to the creation of the Ocean Center parking garage, and the fact that there are fees that they're charging, and we also have fees that we have to charge as well. We cannot turn around and not charge for our parking. So that is part of what would be discussed between the county and the city, is going to have to be how do you manage this and manage the parking fees, or maybe it'll stay just the same. I don't know, but that was one of the issues that has been discussed in the past is tying the fees together and whether or not you can do this differently. It was all set up in the past with good intentions to try to make sure that the county's investment in a parking garage would not be hurt by other public parking garages in that area. So going forward, I'm sure when there's more investment, that'll be an issue.
Yeah, so I hear what you're saying about the fees, but I mean, I'm on board with Jenny and Amy have to say that. I mean, we all live within 2 or 3 blocks of Main Street, and we go by these empty lots that are reserved for certain people all the time. I wouldn't mind if people were using them and paid a fee, but it just seems ridiculous when we're having issues on Main Street that there's not a way, like you're saying, to do some kind of share. So yeah, charge people a fee to use those lots if they're half empty, and give some of it back to the people that it's reserved for or something, but we need to do a better job with that. And the other thing is, I hate to go here, but the other thing to look at is doing some kind of meter system or something on Main Street. Mr. Peters was just sharing with me before the meeting. You know, he's having issues, and maybe you guys are too, I'm not sure. People go into the beach and they will park at 11 o'clock in the morning and walk off and leave their car and come back at 5 or 6, and because parking enforcement is variable, we then have parking slots that are taking up Main Street, and there's nothing any of the owners of the businesses can do about it. So we either need to do a better job of enforcing what's going on, or we need to have a better system.
Reed, has anyone looked into like Joe's Crab Shack having a parking permit, and then why can't we have a tag reader that goes along? I mean, you pay a toll on the Sunshine Park or whatever it is from your tag, and you mail the. I mean, have we looked into that at all?
I don't know that specific way of doing it, as you're saying. The Joe's Crab Shack agreement that was struck when we first brought them here was very specific about how many spaces we were supposed to provide. We revisited that. I know that they did not want to surrender any of the parking spaces in the small lot, so that wasn't going to happen. But your specific idea, I can't say has been brought forward.
Another point, my email was more from the standpoint that this board should have some sort of, I don't know, I'll use the word power, to get on an agenda, and, just being at the public discussion in the last few minutes of the meeting is really not an avenue for what I think we're doing with our time here, and if we can't make recommendations to the city commission, that's why I asked the question, what am I doing here, and it would seem like one of the things is when we come up with something, and I don't know, we'll just use this parking thing, make a formal application to be on the agenda. I mean, some of us are pretty passionate about stuff, or we wouldn't be spending all this time doing it. So it would just seem to me that there needs to be a formalized way of recommendations from this board to get in front of the city commission. And even if it winds up going through the planning first, it doesn't really matter, but it just seems like there's a total void, those last few minutes of or half hour of the city commission meeting where the commissioners can wander in and out and don't have to be there. This doesn't get it for me. Is that it for the redevelopment project update?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'd just like to make one comment on the parking issue. That may not be here or there, but if you look at places that are really successful, and what comes to mind to me is St. Augustine has a large parking garage. They also have a service that shuttles people to the busy areas that they want to get to, which encourages people to go to that garage rather than to cruise around the side streets trying to find a free parking space or one of the metered lots in St. Augustine. It's much easier just to drive into that large parking garage and hop on the little shuttle bus that'll take you over to St. George Street or to the other sites. So I think that's something we might want to consider rather than having acres and acres of asphalt parking. I know we have one parking garage. I know it fills up. It doesn't always, but during events I've seen it where you can't find a parking space. I've seen them turn people away. So we do need more parking, but I'd like to see us look at high-rise parking and at some system of getting people to where they want to go.
Maybe penny-cappers, more of a role for the penny-cappers.
The little golf cart trolleys, or St. Augustine has a bus that makes a little loop and comes back, and it's free to anybody from the parking garage to hop on it and go where they need to go. So you could have a parking garage over by the river somewhere, and not over right down at the beachy more touristed areas, taking up space, and shuttle people over, or even over on the mainland for that matter.
Or we learn to share with the Ocean Center. We build a parking garage with the
Or
Ocean
the Ocean Center learns to share.
They learn to share. We all share.
I would tell you there's a lot of room too for like the pedicabs for the private sector to bring in shuttles, buses, and be involved in that sort of activity. I think you may see some of those coming along. And St. Augustine, they may offer a free shuttle from the garage, but they also have the ones you pay for. They have the tours and in the
Oh
private
yeah,
sector.
you take those, you get like a 3-day ticket, a bracelet, and so if you're staying in town, you're all set for your stay. And yeah, I think we need more transportation like that available to people to encourage them to say use the parking garage rather than park along Main Street.
And I hear there's like this thing called like a hop cycle.
Is it hopcycle or hopsicle?
It's either.
I like hopsicle.
One idea that comes to mind that Marcia and I have talked about is that the restaurant at the end of Main Street that seems to be suffering from debt service on that huge parking lot that they really can't fill up, they can rent the city spaces and get paid for it. There's the cooperation could work. Anyway, with that, we'll get into public comments. Krista Goodrich.
Hello, teacher.
Okay. Hi, I'm Krista Goodrich from 816 Main Street. We've come a long way since we all met, so yay. So just a few things that I wanted to touch on is one, parking from a merchant's perspective on Main Street that's there year-round. So when we bought our building, we have 2 parking spaces behind our building if you park one in front of the other. And we intended to park both our vehicles and our popsicle bike there when needed. Unfortunately, there's a 4-foot wide easement to get to our parking spots, and the tenant next door has chosen to lock the gates and not let us park there. So we cannot park our vehicles nor our bicycle in our land that we own. So that puts us in a new predicament of where do we park our vehicles, just for our staff. We close at 10 o'clock. Sometimes if we're busy, we'll stay open later with our guests. And so that means at 10:30, 10:45 at night, I'm walking all the way down Main Street to maybe, you guys know, I park my truck on the street a lot, in longer than 2 hours, and I know that's bad, but whatever. When I park in the right parking spot, it's 3 blocks down, and I'm walking there in the middle of the night by myself with my laptop and my phone and our cash drawer from the shop. It's not okay. And it's not okay for me to do it. It's not okay for my 21-year-old daughter that works there to do it. It's not okay for any of our staff to do it. Even though Tom knows Taekwondo, it's still not okay for him to do it. So parking is a major issue for Main Street. We've tried to work out deals with our neighbors. We've learned very quickly that Main Street is a very difficult street to make friends on. There's not a sharing environment there. We've tried, you guys know how my personality is. I've tried desperately to share, and that is not what's happening on Main Street. So any support from you all would be incredibly appreciated. One suggestion we have is that we could offer, there's nowhere on Main Street, there's bike parking and there's car parking, but there's no electric vehicle or bicycle parking. And we have bicycles, a very large one, you may have noticed. So today we took it upon ourselves to decide that bicycle parking or bike parking meant us as well. So we started parking the hopsicle in bike parking because it's bicycle parking. And that way we're not taking up a public parking spot. We're not taking a spot that our neighbors can get upset about. We're not in the way of any foot traffic. Motorcycles would park there any other time. So that's what we did today. We would like to ask that you guys consider starting to add bicycle parking, not just for us, but for other people as well. We're even willing, sorry Tom, but my dad said he'd pay for it, to foot the bill for some bike racks so that people can ride their bicycles down Main Street, not just the ones who rev up, and park their bicycles there and enjoy our Main Street. So I'd like to suggest that we add that. That's my first thing. The second thing I have is, does anyone know, because there's a lot of gossip on Main Street, what's the fine if you're not a year-round business and then you just open on Bike Week? Is there a fine? Is there, because my understanding is we're all supposed to be moving to year-round. So what's the consequence if you don't do that? So that's a legit question. Anyone?
Do you want me to address that?
Yeah.
Please.
There is no penalty for not being a year-round business.
So it's just a rumor that you're supposed to be.
there are certain benefits that you don't get if you're not open for a sufficient amount of time. And those include participating in the bike week events. I haven't been directly involved in it, but I think when the city attorney researched this issue, he determined that it would be difficult at best to create an ordinance that would require people to stay open.
Okay, so what are the benefits for being open year-round for Bike Week?
You get to participate in the bike week master plan and have outside events in front of your premises, on the sidewalk or
We were told when we started our process that we're not allowed to be on the sidewalk.
That we can't have.
yeah, I don't know if you can or not. You asked me the general question, so that's what I participated in bike week.
Clarify a little bit, because I've done a lot of work on the master plan, but correct me if I'm wrong, but it's, you have to have vacant property or a parking lot to participate with the tent, it's
Yeah.
vendor parking.
Yeah,
That's what he's talking about, participating in the master plan. You'd make an application, you'd say, I want to put a tent with a vendor on my property, but you don't have any of that open property, so it wouldn't even affect you.
okay, so there's no, benefit to anyone that's currently doing itinerant vending to not continue to do that. Is that right? I just want to understand.
What's the question?
So someone that's only open during Bike Week only, there's a lot of animosity gets created on Main Street, so I just want to understand it better. There's no reason that they can't just continue doing that.
You mean that buildings like, for example, the one just east of Tombstone?
Well, the one next door to us. We can use that as an example. They're very nice people. I have nothing
Right,
against them.
there's no penalty.
There's nothing.
No, they can open.
I'll report back to the board at the next meeting, but I'm pretty confident that we can't validly pass an ordinance that requires people to be open and then penalizes them. There may be development incentives or bonuses that people can give, and I'm not sure how that would work, because usually when you're talking about bonuses, you're talking about things like adding a story. You can't take away the story
Yeah, and
space if somebody doesn't comply. So I think it's a tough situation to regulate, but like I said, I'll let you know for next week.
And we're the new kids. We just want to understand, because we're told so many rumors of, they're supposed to be getting fined because they're not open year round. We don't know. So here we are to ask the questions. It's fine. If that's what it is, then it'll help us to figure out our business
That's
better.
a property that has a vacant, like a parking lot next door. If they have a business, there are a couple there, and they're sort of, the door's open, there's somebody sitting in there like this,
Right.
pretending to be open.
Right.
That's so that their parking lot can be used during bike week.
Okay.
And that's it. It has to be, it's vacant space that's making the moolah. And then the inside place, like you're talking about, people can come in and, they could be in there for a week or 2 weeks, or they can open for 4th of July and close up and not be there. And the only way that we can motivate them is to make Main Street more active.
So, and you're not going to like this question, but the next question then would be, so there's no penalty for us if we're only open for Bike Week, because we're interior only.
Right.
Okay.
I'm going to jump in here because there are discussions about making revisions to the master plan for bike route. So, and that's related to these vacant spaces, and the concern is having this incentive where we say you've got to be open so many days out of the year, in that definition of actually being open.
Right.
Is the one that a lot of people question. Well, wait a minute, they're not really open. I go over in front of that space, there's no one there, but all of a sudden someone runs across the street and opens the door, right?
Where was that even open sign on in the window?
So all I'm saying is that some of the things that happen are in question. There seem to be maybe some very valid concerns, because it's the incentive of Bike Week. Let's face it, is that if I can make my money in 2 events throughout the year, and basically have a skeleton staff somewhere in the area to meet whatever that definition is, so I can say I'm open, but effectively or not, there's not much going on Main Street. We can see it. It's happening. It's happening because anyone who's been down there can see it day in and day out. And that is a concern, is about trying to use the Bike Week guidelines as a way to kind of cut through some of these things that seem to be not as clear, that it's you're open, what we would think is year-round. Okay, so that there, as I understand, going to be some changes going forward. So you might want to make that inquiry about what those changes are in the guidelines, and we haven't seen.
But that wouldn't affect her business because she has no outdoor, no opportunity for outdoor vending at her place.
No.
So there would be like participants that come and apply to be in the Bike Week master plan. I don't think there's any that have just a storefront with no space outside. No, there's not much, and so I would say the incentive is either knock down a building next to you, Correct.
right? I mean, that's been the problem in the past. We've lost buildings in that fashion. So we don't want to have that experience again, and we want to find a way to make sure that there are more year-round businesses like yours who are there, continue to be there, and get away from a model that really hurts us year-round.
Is there a way to knock down the building next to us? Either side. So, just kidding if you're listening, people. Okay, so then my next question would be, well, one, how do you get on, well, I guess backing up, am I at redevelopment right now, or Main Street Board, or what board meeting am I at right now?
Beachside Redevelopment.
Beachside Redevelopment, okay. And my understanding is there's a Main Street.
Well, technically, it's the Main Street and South Atlantic Redevelopment Board, but we call it Beachside.
Okay.
It's been changed, yeah. There were two. The board used to be called that. We shortened the name up. But there are two redevelopment areas that this board has oversight on and considers the approval of site plans and rezoning, that type of thing. It's got a very specific charge as to what this board does to recommend to the planning board and the city commission.
Okay, so what is the process to apply to be on the board? That's my question there. I have lots of questions today, sorry.
Well, there's two ways to do it. The city clerk has the applications. It's also online.
Right.
And you
So I applied online and I never heard anything, so I don't know if I just wasn't qualified or like but I don't know how many merchants on Main Street are participating on the board, and I think it's important, so if not me, someone else.
Oh, so unless you count Joe Mayer, because he has a business on Main Street. He's the only one.
So there are criteria, and how many people can serve on the board that are, residents of the city, not residents of the city. And that's all spelled out there on the website for the boards. And right now, this board is filled up. As each year, the board will some people will come off because they're termed out after a set of 2 years each. And so there'll be a new opening for somebody, or if somebody decides to just come off the board, run for the President of the United States, whatever.
It's linked to the calendar year, so
Okay.
December is the time to.
Okay, it's a calendar year, it's not a
Well, your application is in, it'll stay in.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you email Betty Goodman,
Yep.
probably Goodman,
Yeah.
Betty at codb.us, she's the one that, she keeps the applications, and then when one of us phases out, or, we may ask to be reapplied, but that's when it would happen.
Okay.
She's your contact.
Okay. I'm almost done, I swear. So for events on Main Street, I've learned a lot in the last few months. I opened a company that franchised in many cities, and in every city that we were in, when we had festivals in the downtown area or whatnot, it was typically sponsored by the city, and then the merchants would do their thing, and we'd have vendors come in and whatnot. I've learned recently that for Main Street, we're required to pay a significant amount of the fees, and it's kind of subject to what you feel like paying. It's a very odd system of how it's done. So if you want to do events on Main Street, what is the starting point of that? If you want to do an event that's not already happening on Main Street, if you wanted to bring something different, where does that process start?
Look at Chapter 82 of the City Code.
Okay.
Chapter 82 of the City Code provides for outdoor events, including events that require street closings. And there's two ways to go about doing it. One way is to apply for a permit, which staff can approve. And those permits are subject to fees that are legislated by the City Commission. And the other way to do it is to request a license agreement or facilities agreement that the City Commission will approve.
Okay.
And for those agreements, the Commission is free to decide to what extent, if any, that the Commission wants Chapter 82, including the fees that are required by Chapter 82, to apply.
Okay.
I can also tell you that staff has been working off and on, and there was a changeover in cultural services staff in the last 6 months that may have altered the process, but I personally worked on a draft license agreement with the Main Street Merchants Association to provide for, over a period of years, a set of regularly scheduled events that might entail some kind of fee reduction for association-produced events. That hasn't been approved yet, and I don't know where in the process that is.
Okay. Well, any support we can offer for that, we'd definitely be on board. Okay, and then, so I guess my last thoughts were, we're really excited to be on Main Street. We would like to stay on Main Street. We have a lot of good ideas for the murals, wall art that we were talking about earlier, parking, ways to help with that, and then various festivals that are very open to families. And like the barber said, I love Bike Week. I think it's an awesome event. I think it's super cool. I hope we keep it for as long as we possibly can. But there's 51 other weeks throughout the year that we could have really nice events. There's no reason Daytona is not as nice as DeLand. It's embarrassing. And we could do better. So whatever we can do to step up and help that and change the shape of Main Street, you guys know we put our money where our mouth is, and we've already done a lot to do that. But we need you guys' support too, and we need some guidance because we're fighting a losing battle right now, and so we'd love to have you guys kind of help us a little bit. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Tom Caffrey.
Hey guys, Tom Caffrey, 816 Main Street with the Pallet Hub and Hop Cycles. Thanks for hearing me. Mine is just about parking. So when we started this, as Krista mentioned, we had what we thought 2 parking spots behind our building, and turns out that that's not the case because we just don't have access. So did research, talked to the city. City doesn't manage the parking with code enforcement or parking enforcement. They sublet it to a company called LAZ or LAZ. So LAZ does not issue any sort of parking permits to business owners at all. The only way that they can give us a parking permit is to park all the way over at the parking garage. They monitor all of Joe's Crab Shack parking, which again Ken mentioned is most of the time vacant. It's very rare that anything is there. I would say that the parking lot behind us is typically 20% full, and nobody is ever in. I mean, it's very, very rare. There's several lots that are around there in town, like you said, that are pretty empty, and if we could work something out. I've tried to contact those businesses. Krista has tried to contact those businesses. They give us the unreasonable amount of $10 per day for our employees, which doesn't, they're making $10 an hour. It's not, it's better than minimum wage, but it's still a lot of money for them to pay for parking. So everybody has to walk a pretty significant distance. So if we could work out something with Lay's parking or have some sort of city mandated that for business owners that we could use those Joe's Crab Shack parking lots, they're directly behind our businesses. So those parking lots are the most accessible. For Joe's Crab Shack to have to walk all the way over to those parking lots, I think is pretty silly with that intent, and it's pretty rare that they even use them. Like they said, they're finding closer parking spots. They're probably using the Beachside merchants parking spots, where they're using the boardwalk parking. So they're probably not even using those parking spots that are there. So if they're not going to use them, let's see if we can do something that the merchants can use them so our customers get those parking spots. I just think it, like Krista said, there's not a lot of camaraderie between us. Some of the neighbors are really, really good neighbors. The other ones are not. And we have that kind of forward thinking that we really just want to get along with everybody, and we do our best, but once we're beat down, we just kind of, we're not going to say anything bad or wish anything bad on them, but we're also not going to wish it off them. So, it's just, we do our best that we can, and like Krista said, today we just decided to park in the bike parking spot because everybody is, I guess it's make or break for the one parking spot our bike was taking up for their businesses. So we just really, Lay's parking, if you guys can do some research into that, that's where we would like to go. They have a ton of parking spots available that they're just not using, and if we can figure out a way to use those parking spots, I think it'd be something that's affordable, it's something that's doable, and I don't agree with meters as far as parking meters and things like that. I think to have people running out, you're just going to have people that send their kids to the meters, then next thing you know, something happens with their kid or whatever. So I just think that meters aren't the way to go, but Laz Parking is who does it, and it's really, I think, an achievable solution rather than having to look for something that's out of left field. Thank you.
That was our last public comment, and now board comments.
Oh, I got it.
I've been advocating for a parking authority in Daytona Beach for a long time, or hoping that we would have one, and it's going to be up to our staff, our city staff, our city manager needs to say we got to have a parking solution in the E-zone, and there's a huge flat county lot that would be perfect for Verdict to go up with some pedicabs or a little shuttle, and maybe we could be like St. Augustine or DeLand or Savannah or some of these other places. Parking is critical. It's not going to stop being critical. Somebody needs to get on that. Joe's, the business about Joe's, I think we need to monitor that and see if it's true. And Ken has been telling me this for a long time. If it is not being used and they just don't want to come to the table and give up those spots, that's really, really unfair. And as much as we like having them on the pier, because it's like the only thing going on down here, that somebody needs to negotiate that a little bit better. What's happening with 14 South Coates? Do we have any, did the permits expire on that again? There is zero movement. The roof is falling in. There's still a pile of garbage in front. There's still a trailer leaning up on it. Do you know anything about that building?
I know it's come to the magistrate. I'm not sure what they came out with
Again?
last. Yeah, it was the code enforcement board, but I knew they had to come back and present additional information.
He was before the demolition board last I heard, and it was the what do you call it, the building abate or building rehab board, the rehab board, the one that sees the condemnations, and they're trying to fend off a condemnation, and I don't want to see it condemned, but it's just, I was just asking you personally if you'd seen any movement or any action on a plan for that building.
I have not, and I'd be happy to look into that and give you a status for everybody. I can send out a message on that one.
Thank you. The assembled property that the Streamline now owns that is systematically being asphalted near the corner between ISD and A1A and 5th there. Do we know what that's going to become? Because it's parking for Streamline events is what he's using it for. It really looks terrible. I think it's in my consideration, it's one of the handful of very large lighting influences. It was when that Shell's building was there for a long time, but it still really hasn't stepped up to what we would hope. And it's nice to give somebody some time to work it over, but are we just going to allow this to be paved and be a giant parking lot, and for how long?
No, I think that it's obviously a transitional situation right now. I think that the owner of the Streamline has kind of stepped back. We know they went through an auction, and now I think the last we saw in the discussion was in the public is that to come back and look at trying to develop that corner in concert with the idea still of a traffic circle
Right.
at that corner as well.
But the traffic circle is not going to take up that whole space.
No.
And my concern again, and I know I sound like a broken record, but these properties that are allowed to wait, we have to have standards that we can place on them. It may not need to look like Disney World, but it needs to be clean and maybe orderly looking somehow. I'm not asking them to plant a bunch of palm trees, but just, I think it's unacceptable to just allow somebody to asphalt over a vacant lot. As I, to say it again, I'm not doing that with my vacant lot, So that's one of the big things. And something I would like to pose to the board, and you've already said you'll come back with an answer about 14 South Codes. I'd like just out of curiosity, each one of us, if you would like, to state what you feel is one of the biggest blighting influences on the area that we oversee, and say, okay, it's X address or it's this building, and ask Reed to give us an update on what's happening with it, or work on it, or So I would throw that out to this board as maybe a regular occurrence, because there's still a lot of things that are sitting. Nothing's happening with them. So, and then I did have one other thing I want to talk about. I probably should have said first. Maybe I'll do that. Can I do that? Sure. About murals. Murals. Sandy and I went to a historical preservation meeting that's put on by the state of Florida every year. Learned a whole lot about historical, what can be done with historical preservation and how the state has funds available. And it's not just funds for putting new siding on your house, it's funds for the city to seek out historical buildings and preserve them, or work with owners and preserve them. So we learned a lot, but we also did a tour of the DeLand murals. And I'm really itching for this here, which is why I spoke to Ken before. I didn't just hit him with that during the meeting. I spoke to him before, and I asked if he would be willing, if we could come up with funding. And I know exactly the artist that would be perfect for something on his building or another place. But we really want to see that kind of thing. Frank Molnar spoke to me today, and I know he's spoken to you. He's working with Billy Wheeler. He's putting together a group. The idea is to have an arts district and a group that will approve these kind of murals, so they don't have to come through us, and maybe a group that will seek out places to do murals and become more proactive about it. Funding would be available for artists, so somebody like Ken wouldn't have to worry about asking a friend of his to do the mural, but we could find him an artist and actually fund the art, because there's, I don't know how many we saw in DeLand. There's probably 30 murals there, and they're all historic based. There's a reason for them. People do a tour to see them, and there's nobody that doesn't want that here in Daytona Beach. So my question for you now is: do you have any more applications for murals that are coming up? And if you do you offer this kind of thing to someone? Like if a Ken Peters comes and says, I want to put this graphic on the wall, do you say, let me put you in touch with someone who can help you get art on your building? Maybe he still ends up with the same thing, but at least he has options, and he might be able to do something of a historic or more creative nature. And because if we have to push it to get it here. So I don't know if that. Do you do that kind of thing?
Well, your first question is, are there any mural applications? And so the answer to that is, I have none at this time for any of the redevelopment areas. And to the other point of when somebody would come in, and would I direct them? Right now, there's an organization you mentioned, Mr. Molnar and others who have been dedicating themselves to trying to put together an arts council commission, and it's not a formal organization yet, but there are people that are meeting and trying to come up with a game plan on how to do that. And if there's an organization that we can recommend to somebody when they come and say, "Did you know?" We can certainly do that, and we can let them know that there's somebody you can talk to when you're thinking about that. I think that what I expect to see is probably more of the solicitation by that organization with the artists and the local artists to try to make some things happen that, as a consensus, they think is going to be good. You know, the best ideas are that come out of murals sometimes is just that free thinking, right? With the artists and what they want. The land is different. You know, there was really a concerted effort to say we want to do some historical theme and put that on there, and they do the entire wall in many cases with that, and there has to be a host building for that. So I think if we have the host buildings and we have an organization that wants to promote it, I'm going to fully expect that we'll have our hands full with that coming back to us with people who are going to have a pretty solid idea, and I think we might be more focused in the future about the kind of graphics and wall murals we might see in the future. I can tell you, yesterday we had a mural. The downtown board approved, and it'll be right outside the parking lot here if you drive out on Palmetto. And across the street, Family Acupuncture has one proposed. So that's actually part of that is on the front of the building. We usually don't see the murals on the front of the building like that. But this is one case. Assuming they go through it, you'll start to see that. And the challenge going forward is whether or not we are going to change the land development code in the graphics to do this a little bit differently, particularly when we know that there is a filter, if you will, of ways for the graphics to actually get through a group, and we don't have to apply as much discussion on how it works. We can streamline it maybe a little better.
Jim?
I want to echo what Amy said about the parking lots. I don't think anyone should just be able to have a vast expanse of asphalt with no parking, with no islands, trees, and so on. I've been to parking lots that it was actually like being in a forest. It was not miserable, and there are many of them. One example is at the Ormond Beach City Library. That's actually, I wish I knew how they did that. Did they just avoid cutting down a lot of their trees in the first place, maybe? So, no use crying over spilled milk. But a parking lot should never just get to be an expanse of asphalt. That's one of the biggest blights. As far as I'm concerned, even just an empty, unmowed lot at least is providing ecosystem services. It's providing heat island mitigation and flood control and water filtration. So we need to be, parking lots need to have some islands and some landscaping for that, especially given that the city's getting ready to spend $15 million on flood control because some areas of our town flood really badly. If we plant more vegetation, it'll help take the load off our infrastructure. So that's all, except that I'm really excited about the art stuff happening. Everybody have a good night.
Again, I'm kind of, Amy covered a lot. My issue a lot with the parking is I feel right now, because of some of the way the lots are controlled, that it's holding some of our Main Street businesses hostage out of no fault of their own, and I think it's holding back what could be happening because people come down to Main Street, but where you can't when you can't provide sufficient parking for them to attract people to their businesses, I mean, where's the incentive? And so I'm really struggling that we have people that aren't cooperative, that are not using their lots, and we're okay with that. It's not okay at all. And there's got to be better cooperation with people. And, I don't know that we have any power to do that, but it just needs to be looked into. And I think there needs to be, at this point, more enforcement on Main Street, too, so that I don't know if that's LAS or if that's the police department, but they need to step up enforcing how long people are parking, so that we at least get some flow down there for our merchants. So other than that, I'm very excited about what Ken's doing, and I think it's one more step in the right direction. And I think every time we get together, it's something new that's coming along, and so it's just starting to feel hopeful about what's going on in Main Street.
Okay, Mr. Gross, last time you said you'd look into putting the code enforcement liens on tax bills?
Yeah, that's not lawful. What you can do is you can put assessments that improve property on the tax bills.
Doesn't the city have to approve something to actually put it onto the tax bill?
Yeah, that's a procedural question. You asked the question whether the city could put code liens in general on the tax bills, and we can't.
Okay, because I thought what tax assessor said was if it's more than $1,500 to correct the situation, the city could go in and fix the fence for $1,501, and then that $1,501 would appear on his tax bill.
Well, you're talking about situations where, pursuant to the condemnation process, we go and we wall up windows or seal properties off, and my understanding, and I could look at that for you, is that we do take those through the tax bill, or in the process of doing that. But you were last time referring generally to code. There's a big difference.
Yeah, must have misspoke.
A code, so for example, a code enforcement order that cites somebody for having trash and debris in their yard or deteriorated wood or things that are violations of the code, those, and that's the bulk of code enforcement orders, those can't go on the tax bill.
I thought the limit was $1,500.
You're talking about a dollar limit, and I'm talking about the type of action for which we can put things on the tax roll. And I'll verify this next time, if you're talking about where we go and board up properties, which we don't typically do through code enforcement, although cities can do that. We go through a condemnation process to do that. My understanding, and I'll verify this next time, is that those kinds of fees can be, and we do. So I'll verify both of those.
Okay, now I'm thinking of the falling down fence, and the city crew or hire someone to go fix it, and then that is added to the tax bill.
Yeah, and so I would look at that. And
Okay. And I guess this is a question more for Reed. We talked about parking, and it just seems like if there was a parking co-op, like that restaurant on the end of Main Street that has excess parking and can't really financially, I'm guessing, financially support it, and you could have this little obstacle, shuttle people around, and then if you had a business that wasn't a 12-month business, they would not be in this parking co-op, and I think there's incentives that we can do, but then it's how do you put this together, and because it is a public-private situation. How can we as a board encourage the city of Daytona Beach, whatever that is, to pursue this?
I think it's still best if there's specific ideas, and you've had some ideas on maybe what we do with Joe's Crab Shack and with some of these others. I think best way is to get with either your elected official and/or get in touch with the city manager's office, and specifically, I would put it in writing. I think the emails can be effective in getting your thoughts put down, and if you feel it represents the board as a whole, to share that as well. But I think that's one way to get that conversation moving forward.
Okay. But a lot of times somebody has an idea that generates an idea from someone else, and you almost need the synergy to really have it happen. And we can't talk to each other,
Right.
at all, or not at all. So, and I guess that's my frustration is it just seems like we should be able to have not really a conversation. I'm not going to call it a workshop, because a workshop is a one-way conversation, but a conversation with various leaders and so forth, and what are some of the ideas. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
May I ask one more question about what Mike brought up? The cost, about putting the cost on the tax bills. When it's a demolition, that's pretty much, I mean, when the city goes in and demolishes, for example, the hotel on A1A, that was condemned. Did the owners pay for that, or did the city do the demolition?
The city paid for that.
Okay, and so that will
There's
go.
a lien on the property.
There's a lien for that amount?
And what I was saying earlier is I think that those things are the type of things that are going into that process, but I have to check and get back.
But there's a limit on how much it is?
That was something Mr. Dennis
Okay,
referred to.
right.
And I think what he's referring to is that the invitation from the tax collector to put it on the bill required as a condition that we only put items that cost at least X amount.
Oh, gotcha. And then what about did the city do the demolition on the Lyndhurst building also? Is that similar? The Lyndhurst Hotel?
If we condemned it and demolished it, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
The building toward the Brown and Brown side?
Yes, yeah.
Do you know what?
I just wondered who paid for that.
I don't know if we did that or if Brown and Brown bought it and did it. I don't know the answer to that.
No, I think we effectively brought it down, and consequently, after that time, I believe it's been acquired by Brown & Brown.
Right. So the property owner would have had a lien on their property when they sold it to Brown & Brown.
Well, we're not sure any of that happened. I mean, I was wondering aloud how that happened. Reed's telling you, as a factual matter, he thinks the city condemned it.
Condemned it, paid to take the building down, and then the current owner, or the former owner, sold it to Brown & Brown. Okay. But we don't know how we get reimbursed for that.
I don't know all the details, so can't speak to it.
One final thing that just read my note here. Can CRA money be allocated towards murals?
Yeah, painting of a building can certainly constitute use of grants. It's eligible. So if I paint the side of my building and I also include a mural on it, certainly that would be something you could do. We also provide money for business facades, signs, and that sort of thing. So
Yes.
that's one way that yes, we would participate if it's eligible. And when I say eligible, you can't be a T-shirt shop out there because it's not a targeted business. But on a regular facade grant, we could do that on just about any commercial building.
Okay. With that, I guess we'll adjourn